Right, Hannes, good to see you. Thanks for your time. If we start with the fitness for tomorrow's game, any new issues?
Not new issues. Positives on Lungi. I think he can join the matchday squad. He was out of training a couple of days after the Burnley game, but feeling better, and I think he's an option for us.
How long has he been in training then? Since?
Couple of days.
Yeah. And I think there was a video the club put out had Callum Doyle in it in training. So is he going to be available?
Yeah, that's the good thing about video clips. He's available. Not as a starter. That would be too much for him. But he's been in training for it's Thursday today. Yeah, so start of this week. And he'll be a player for us for last 3-4 games of the season here.
Was there any decision for you to make on that, given obviously I think playoffs fairly unlikely at this point? So was there any decision for you as to whether to keep him around or just send him back to Manchester City?
We need to keep him around because we cannot take a decision to send him back, because all of us in this room know what will happen if we send him back. Then there will be another one in his position that will be injured, and then all of us will say, why did we send him back? So that we will definitely not do, and also based on the fact that he really wanted to stay here and be around the group and be, just finish the season off in as good way as possible. So that was a no-brainer for us to keep him in the group. And now it seems like he's going to be available for us here the last 4 games. Of course, not with full minutes in all of them, but we still have to nice and easy manage him in. But he'll be available, and that will be good for some of the others that have played a lot.
I suppose some of the sort of left-back injuries you've got probably comes into that as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think it's really been an option for us to send him back to Man City. And I think also, I think we still have to treat loan players as they are one of us. I think that's been the approach from the coaching staff and also all of the players with the loan players that we have had this season. That I don't think we should treat them differently. Plan is that they're here for the season, and if they have any injuries, they will stay here for the season, and they get the job done. I think that's important also for them, because I think many players, they would like to end the season off also with the players that they've spent the season with.
Indeed. And with Ante Sinats?
He will not be available for it's what is it? It's Thursday today for Friday, and probably not also not the Monday game. We have to wait and see with the Monday game, but not for tomorrow.
Does it feel fairly likely that he'll be in the following weekend?
I think so. That's the plan. That's the plan at least.
Okay. And with Mate Jurasek, any sort of progress on him?
A little bit progress. So I think for him, we will take a decision when to integrate him. It could be already from the Monday game against Millwall. But again, let's wait and see. But there's been positives about him this week as well.
So has he been in full training?
Yeah.
I suppose that's positive. You spoke about the fact you wanted.
That's the first step for him to be able to handle a full week of training with us. Without that, then it's not a possibility. So, but he's been doing that. He's been with the team the whole week. He's been doing well. So I think it's the next step for us is to integrate him in the matchday squad.
Are you expecting Ono Hernandez to be available?
He's also available and has been with the group since start of this week.
What's his response been like since he's been?
Very good in many ways. So I think there was a good discussion, mostly with him and Ben, and they had a good meeting around the situation where they clarified what we can expect from a club, also what he can expect, and what we think is good behavior, what is not so good behavior, and also a little bit on his future on social media, because we're also here to support him. And I think I will not be the one who will tell players to completely stay off of social medias, because I think there's many good things, and I think to open a little bit up for an environment that has normally been very, very closed, I think it's good in many ways. But of course, also as a player, you need to protect yourself a little bit, because there is people out there who's very good at taking small things out of a context and make it a big thing. So I think it was a good in many ways that he also know how he can deal with his platforms social media wise going forward.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about sort of the fans and how you expect them to react to him, because obviously he's had a great relationship with them for several years now going back, but there will be people who will be upset by those things. Obviously
Yeah, I hope they will do. I hope they will do like they always do. And I think what is also important as a fan is that you should take your own decision. You should have your own opinion. I think I can just mention one player to you, and probably there will be different opinions about that player. That's how it is, and that's more than fair. Also, as a fan, will always be players you like more than others. So I think continue in the same support as they always do. I think what has always been and will always be a part of our culture here is that there's a clear consequence when you step over that line that we have made. But we also take players back when after that consequence, and that's a big part of it. So I hope there will be a good reaction from the fans.
Yeah, just finally on sort of fitness. You mentioned that Monday game a couple of times. Is that something you already have to be considering with your starting 11?
It is, because it's 2 days. It's 2 days we have to recover and train and prepare. So we have to take decisions that are based on tomorrow and put a strong team, as strong as possible on the pitch, but also think a little bit about the Monday game. So just an example, there can be substitutions tomorrow where it's not because we probably would like to do that. But we have to do that, thinking about that we also play again on Monday. That could be one of the scenarios. But we 100% need to plan when there's only so many hours between the two games. We have to plan for the next one as well.
Yeah, I suppose in a way it's kind of similar to the way you set up for Burnley in terms of there are certain players I'm sure you would have loved to play 90 minutes.
I think everyone they know that the two players coming on from the bench is normally starters for us, and if we could start them for 46 championship games, then we will 100% do that. But it's not the case. It's not the fact that, or it is the fact that they cannot play so many games, especially just with so short recovery in between. And we have to protect them. We have to make sure that we get the best out of them. So that's also an important thing.
And on Portsmouth, what sort of challenge do you expect from them?
One of them we've faced, I think, a handful of times, especially at home, where I think they will try to slow the game down in moments, but I also think they have another side in them where they're actually quite aggressive, and we also expect that in moments of the game where they really like to be front-footed in their pressing game, and we have to be clean in our passing game. We have to be calm, and we have to play with confidence. So I think the game can be a little bit different from 15 minutes to the next 15 minutes to the next 15 minutes, and that's something we have to be prepared for. Then we know that they have a threat in their very direct play. We know that direct play can start already from the keeper. If we give him too much time, then he can deliver passes directly in behind of our backline. And also the centre backs, they look a lot for that with the striker, but also the wingers getting in very close, connected to that striker. So the direct play is definitely something we have to be prepared for, and we have tried to prepare the players.
I suppose a lot of that is down to sort of pressing and counter-pressing, right?
It's and it's down to us also sometimes actually try not to attack too fast, because we need to keep the shape in the team so we don't start to open the game up, because then it's more difficult for us to have pressure on the ball. But if we can kind of push them towards their own goal and make it very compact on the final third, then it's more difficult for them to get out, and it's easier for us to put pressure on the ball again. And I think probably bits of the Sunderland game, probably the first 45 minutes, we did very well in terms of that, and there was many good moments also in the second half in the Burnley game where we, because of our very offensive positions also from our centre backs, avoided counter attacks and avoided too much space in between us as a team.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you specifically about Josh Murphy, obviously a key player for Portsmouth and somebody Norwich fans know well. So what sort of threat will he provide?
Great shot from distance. We have to be aware of. Can go both ways, and is just a threat for them. So we've prepared our players exactly for that. But they have more players, and I think they have, which we also saw last time we played them away from home. And also, if we just look at especially some of their home results this season, that they can be a threat for many teams. But it's especially their direct approach. Bishop up front is also one of them to mention. So they can cause some problems, and we have to be as prepared as possible, because if we're just a little bit off, if the timing is just a little bit off, then they can bring some dangerous passes in behind us.
Yeah, I think their manager said in his pre-match press conference he didn't really know which way it was going to tip for you, because obviously if there's not much to play for, he doesn't know if that will be a lack of motivation, or it could even sort of free your players up to go and almost be free of pressure in a way. Are you hoping that it will tip towards the latter?
But I would say I know that there's absolutely no lack of motivation, because again, I think I said it a couple of games ago that every player as an individual has something to fight for, whether it's a new contract, whether it's another position in the team, whether it's a starting position from start of next season, or whatever it is. Everyone has something to play for, and that's also what you will see. And I think, we saw that in the Sunderland game in many ways. I think that there was a great motivation, and there was in many ways a great display from a lot of the players. Second half in Burnley, great response again, and also a motivation to fight back, even though the result was not in our favour at halftime. So I think definitely there's a lot of motivation. So it's about getting that balance right. So of course we have to prepare some of the younger guys for also what's coming.
Yeah, obviously yesterday the club announced a new contract for Elliot Miles. What was the thinking behind that?
The thinking is that he's been with the first team group for the most of this season, and has been doing well, taking some big steps in a direction to become a regular starter on the first team, which should be his ambition. He'll be even closer now to the team. He'll be with us in pre-season, and I hope he can do a good pre-season to really see how close he can get to the team. That's the plan, and he's again a young player who's been in the academy system for a couple of years, so very exciting. Of course, like all the other young players that have been a part of the first team this season, we should still have patience, and we not expect that he will just kick the door in and be a regular starter, but we should have expectations, because he's a great player.
Obviously, he's still not actually starting any games yet. Do you have any idea how far away he is from that?
Yeah, you never know. That's also down to availability, and he's probably competing with most of our left side players attacking wise, and Borja, fair play to him, has more or less been available for every game when he's not suspended. So fitness wise, he's really a strong player in many ways, and that's of course difficult to compete with. But I would say next season he should be ready to take his opportunities when they are there, because that's the plan, of course, with signing a new contract. That's the next step in his development. The next step in his development is to get a starter. So a handful of starters next year. That will be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think there's been a couple of suggestions that Emi Marcondes might be another one who maybe extends his stay at the club. So I just wanted to ask you about him and what he gives you, really.
I think some presence up front. I think sometimes we are probably a little bit too dependent on scoring goals, where everything is just right. 20 passes in a row that is completely right, and the perfect delivery and the perfect finish. Sometimes he can give us that a little bit scrappy situation and turn it into a good offensive situation for us. He plays the game very well. He reads the game very well. He stays in very offensive positions, and is always looking for where the ball can drop down and where the rebound can be, and where the chance can be. So I think in many ways a little bit different to some of our other offensive players. And then he's got the experience in the league, which we have seen a couple of times, where he can come on from the bench, or when he's a starter, that he can give some of the younger boys a little bit experience.
Yeah, I suppose that's sort of especially important when you've got not too many experienced players around the group, and maybe a couple leaving this summer as well, to have him to sort of add to that group.
Now you're talking like we have extended that contract, so I think. Still, I think we can open up for more, probably a little bit more clarity and communication next week after the two games we have played now. So everyone know exactly where we are with the contract situations on different players. But yeah, he has given us that, and he's been vital for the team in many ways. I think he's like I said, playing the game in many ways. What we saw in the Watford game, what we saw especially games away from home, where he can take a little bit of the pressure of some of our other players, because he's naturally thriving in it. So it gives us something.
Yeah, I also wanted to speak to you about sort of Kellen Fisher, because I know we've said all the things that there probably are to say about how good he is. But does he also give you quite a good example of what you're trying to do here? I know obviously he was here before you were and signed before you were, but had sort of a year where a few games maybe it was a bit tough for him at times, and then he sort of blossomed this season. Is that a good example of what you hope can happen with the rest of your young players?
Yeah, it is, and he's not the only one, because I think probably before the injury he got, Lucian, he was about to take that step. So I think there's been many interesting cases with young players this season. Forsyth was the same, where he started our first home game of the season against Blackburn, and then also started in Cardiff in that away game where he unfortunately got the injury. So I think actually there's been many stories with the young players. Also Oscar Schwartzau we have to mention, where they have taken some big steps this season. And then obviously it's going to be interesting to see how they learn from a season like this, with all the ups and downs, with all the adversity, with all the great moments, with all this stuff that has been happening for more or less 1 year now. How they take that as a learning and deal with it and use it for next season. Because of course now, and when we look into especially the future for Kellen now, he knows the league, he knows his position, he know what we expect from him, and now he needs to turn that into being a key player of the team, and that's the next very exciting step.
Yeah, obviously Kellen came from, I think, the 5th division of English football at the time, and those lower English leagues aren't really a market you've looked at sort of too much over sort of, I don't know, well, since you arrived, really, you and Ben. So is that something maybe you'll target a little bit more in the summer, or not really?
I think we target all over. I think, there's a lot of the same recruitment staff that has been working here for many years, and I think they look at the same. We also, even though we don't have too many South Americans in the team right now, Nacho is there obviously, but I think that's still a market for us. The European market is a market for us. The domestic market is a market for us. So we have to be all over. So yeah, some good scouting being done, finding Kellen Fisher, I would say. So obviously we should always have an eye in the lower leagues, but we try to cover as much as possible.
Yeah, I think this week the EFL sort of announced their shortlist for their awards this season. No Borja or Josh Sargent. So are you surprised by that, and do you think they've been overlooked at all?
There's many ways to look at awards, and I think I've said here once that I'll never be a fan of individual awards in a collective sport, because it's so difficult to measure. So what does it take to win an award? Do you have to score the most goals? Do you have to make the most assists? Do you have to make the most dribbles? Do you have to make the most clearances? What does it actually take? I think there's been many good performances when I just look across the league, from goalkeeper positions to centre backs to defensive midfielders and all the way to the strikers. So I think it's so difficult, and I think probably they could have selected 10 more players out of the 3 that they have selected. So I'm not the right one to ask about individual awards, because I think it's so difficult. Most likely you will take players from the top teams, because it means that they have delivered high quality and top level for most of the season, naturally. So that will often be the choices, but it's really, really difficult.
Yeah, just a couple more for me. On the style of play, and I know obviously you've mainly played the way that you want to play, but a couple of times in the last few weeks you've sort of gone away from that. And I know you've spoken a few times about wanting to keep the fans on side for next season and wanting to get results, for that reason as well. But is it also not the case that they want to see that style of play, and they, part of the reason why they wanted a coach like you is to play that sort of possession-based system? So is that something you have to consider when you want to bring them with you for next season as well?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, because it's, of course, how can I say it? We have to be very clear on how we play, and the players, they have to know exactly what we expect from them. What are the demands? What do we require from a certain position? How do they look at that collectively? But you also have to adapt to the season and adapt to what's available for you as a team. And like I said after the Burnley game, it will never be our favorite go-to formation, the first half formation we did. And could we have done differently? I think we would have done that. But when we looked at the players available, it for us to play the way that we wanted to play, or at least the same structure, we would have played 2, 3, probably 4 players out of position, and we didn't think that was the right decision or choice for that game. So there's been some examples this season where we simply had to change because of availability or something else, and that's not an excuse, because I think that happens to all the coaches in the league, that there will be moments of a season where they simply have to look at, okay, who's available, who's in form at the moment, and how do we put those players together on the pitch where they don't have to play out of position, they play where they are best. And that was what we tried in Burnley. Obviously it didn't work the way we wanted it, because we were, especially defensively, a little bit too sloppy in 2 particular moments. So we would have preferred the second half approach for 90 minutes in Burnley, but it was not really an option for us that game. So sometimes we have to do it, and there will definitely be more games like that where we have to do it for some reason, but there will always be a very clear foundation of how we want to play and how we want to dominate games. And recently, I think first half against Sunderland, or probably 60-70 minutes against Sunderland, was the expression we want.
Yeah, just finally, I think the FA published agent fees for the last year in the week. I'm not going to ask you about the intricacies of those deals, but Norwich were, I think, up there. I think they were 5th in the Championship, and obviously there has been a decent amount of money spent this season, probably quite a lot more than has been spent when they've been promoted before. So can you, I know you'll say, players were brought in to develop for the future, but can you understand people who would look at it and say, a lot of money has been spent for Championship level and you're 13th at the moment? Can you understand why people would be disappointed when they put those 2 things together?
Yeah, and that's the reason why you don't put these 2 things together.
In terms of you internally and how you...
No, because you have to, with every player, you have to measure a player over the contract length.
Yeah.
So that's why you sign players on contracts. Where in different sports it's a different system. So when you take the approach and you sign young players on a 4 or 5 year contract, it's the contract length you have to measure. So you cannot point out one particular season and say, okay, here was it enough in terms of how much money we spent. You have to look at a 4 year, probably even 5 year perspective, and then it's more than fair. Yeah. If you look me in the eyes in 5 years' time and ask me the same question, then I will say, fair enough. It's not good enough to be 13th in the league. But especially also with the approach that we have, I think also budget-wise, we were up there in top 5, 6 last season, right? I'm right with that. We will probably not be up there in top 5 this season with the changes we have made. So that has to be adjusted to all of it. So nothing is just a transfer fee or an agent fee. Everything have to be mixed together as the contract length, the money over the contract, and then of course the agent fees and the transfer fees and stuff like that. So you have to measure over a longer period, and not only just the exact position you are in when you ask the question, because you could have asked, I don't know, 8 weeks ago, and then we were position 7 or 8 in the league, and then my answer would actually have been exactly the same. That is not how we can deal with it. So, but I appreciate the question, and I appreciate also that people will ask and say, okay, you've spent some money and you have probably signed more expensive players than the previous seasons. So why are we still 13th in the league? And I hope that my answer here just gave a little bit of clarity on that, because we want to reduce the wages just a little bit, where we had, too many players on probably too big contracts who are not really participating enough on the team, and that balance we have to get right. So, I think every club look for that the best paid player should be the best player on the pitch as well. There should not be a difference in that. Then you have something you need to adjust. That you cannot adjust overnight or over 6 months or over 12 months. It has to be adjusted over, again, back to this 3-4 year contract length plan.